when I got exposed to the Parent Hope Project training back in January, when Janie was in the States and in New Jersey, and she was doing a training, and I came down and helped her with that training and participated in it myself. When I was immediately done with that, I went and I recruited some clients, if you will, to take through the Parent Hope Project. And so I had a cohort of 3 that I took through back in February through May. It took through through the 6 sessions and the 6 lessons, if you will. And they've said they found it to be remarkable, and particularly helpful in terms of them and their own lives with their children, and how they've how they're working with them and trying to be a more principled parent leader with their children. And so, they were sold enough on it that they've come and joined the training program. Now, the beauty of the Parent Hope Project is that the Parent Hope Project is what you might call a deductive approach, because you basically are trying on Jenny Brown's approach to the theory, her understanding of Bowen theory. And so it's very deductive. And for somebody who's been exposed to the Bowen theory since the 1990s, it was really uncomfortable to do that. It was not an easy journey to all of a sudden try on her approach to her way of thinking and her kind of model for particularly looking at the concept of family projection process, if we want to talk about that, because that's the main concept that the Parent Hope Project kind of capitalizes upon, and also I statements and differentiation of self. That was not an easy journey, but however, through doing that, I saw because I did that I call it a deductive taking on something and kind of applying from the top down. I learned things about myself that I probably could not have learned any other way. I learned some about my blind spots. I learned things about my biases, about the theory. Well, one of the things I learned about myself, and this maybe has to do with my sibling position as a youngest with 2 older sisters, and always kind of fighting for my place at the table and fighting for my voice, if you will, growing up and stuff, is I learned that when I got into working with people and doing the Parent Hope Project, that I found it really hard for me to hold back and allow them to have the aha moment. To allow them to let the gears turn in their own head, the client, and have them come up with the understanding, if you will, of the and then what happened, and then what happened, and then what happened, the question that you ask over and over again in the Parent Hope Project. I found it really hard to hold back and say, and kind of give them the space to be able to have their own aha moment, if you will. And I was eager to give them the answer. Like, look, I know the answer, and that goes right back to my family of origin. And it's like, wow, I thought I was beyond that. I thought I had dealt with that a long time ago. That kind of need to be, show myself as being capable and confident. Again, I sort of as a big picture Bowen theorist of 30-something years. And that is, I think one of the most wonderful things about the Parent Hope Project is that it really addresses people where they're at. I mean, I have been thinking about this a lot, and that is that you can look at any of the other concepts of Bowen theory, okay? Triangles, sibling position, multi-generational transmission process, and all those other concepts are ones where you can have an aha moment around. And it's also kind of a positive experience. Like when you first learn about a triangle, triangles, which was the first thing I got exposed to in my, when I sought out Bowen theory coaching for myself back in college, actually, undergraduate. I was in a very intense dyad with my father. I was a very conflictual, intense dyad with my father. That was troubling to me to no end and making it hard for me to perform in school and just basically get done with school. And when I had my first coaching session in Bowen theory, the coach I was working with talked to me about triangles. introduced me to the concept of the triangle. Because he asked me about, well, what's your relationship with your mother like? So completing the triangle, and all of a sudden, I mean, one of the things he said to me was, rather than trying to work on having a better relationship with your father's kind of running away from you, he said, why don't you work at having less of a relationship with your mother, and then maybe that'll create some space in your life to have a relationship with your father. And I was like, wow, that is really a different way of thinking about this. It's like, so the basic point being is that when you go from a stuck dyad to thinking about a triangle, you have another relationship you can work on that will have an effect upon the problematic relationship. And so there's a positivity in that. There's a positiveness about that. Okay. Likewise with sibling position, it's like, oh, that's how come I struggle with things I struggle with, the insecurities, the challenges. How come I'm good in certain things and maybe not so good in other things? There's really something valuable to be learned about oneself and how one engages. You can look at all the other concepts of the theory and that's it, except for family projection process. Because most of us who have children are engaged in the family projection process. Again, I've worked with clinical families for the last 30-something years. I can count on one hand the number of probably less than one hand, maybe 3 fingers, the number of families where there didn't seem to be any visible family projection process going on, and that's over hundreds of cases, maybe more than hundreds of cases. So like really, I mean, just about all of us are engaged in the family projection process, anxious, focusing on one of our children more than say the other children. And that's a challenge and it's a struggle. I have not met anybody who said that, oh yeah, I got this. This is easy, So either being on the receiving end of the family projection process or being somebody who's done it, who's doing it myself as a parent, not easy. Not easy. It's the one concept of the theory that you don't walk away with the hopefulness to it right away. It's not a hopeful concept. And that's why I think a program like the Parent Hope Project, hope in the name, it can become more hopeful over time, but it takes a disciplined effort. It takes an effort like what Ginny has come up with through the Parent Hope Project to turn something that's very doom and gloom initially and to have it become a hopeful process. It takes time and energy and a reorientation off of the child and onto self, which is not easy, which is not an easy journey. But it's a journey that's possible if one engages in it. And I think the Parent Hope Project provides a roadmap for doing that effectively.